Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Sign, Steal, Deliver, Gods of Thunder MC Book 1 by Carrie, Pulkinen, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Now this is what I call a party. Hermes rolled his Ducati to a stop at the corner of Dumaine and Bourbon Street as a mass of humans dressed in togas and laurels danced down the center of the road. A five-piece brass band belted out a lively tune as they hung a right at the intersection and continued on their way, and Hermes tapped his foot on the pavement along with the beat. He held up his wrist so Agnes and Everness, the snake spiraling up his catasus, could see the revelry. Carrying a full-length staff around in public made it difficult to keep his identity a secret, which old Z insisted all the Olympians do, so he shrank it to the wristwatch size and wore it as a bracelet most of the time. "What do you think? Best vacation ever?" "It is an interesting place," Agnes hissed. "But would they still be honoring you if they knew you were retired?" Avernus asked. "It's a good thing they don't know, isn't it, Vern?" Hermes winked, and the wings on his helmet fluttered in excitement as he continued his trip to Esplanade toward the vacation rental he'd booked on Fay B&B. It wasn't difficult to convince the rest of the Olympians their next road trip should be to New Orleans. With parade organizations, aka crews, named specifically for the gods, how could they say no to a 2-week-long party thrown in their honor? Sure, Z was a little ticked to find out there was a crew of Poseidon, but no crew of Zeus. It didn't help when he learned some minor gods like Iris, Morpheus, and even the hero Perseus had parades, but the king of the gods got nada. Hell, Dionysius got 2, one for his Greek name and one for his Roman, Bacchus. Hermes had tried to explain the streets weren't wide enough for all that ego, but when dear old Dad was about to put his foot down on the whole trip, Hermes changed his tune. He convinced Z the entire carnival honored the king of the gods, and the mortals would have warred over who got to be in the crew of Zeus. Z bought it, of course. Hey, Hermes was good with words. He was the god of language, after all. With Poseidon, Dionysius, Athena, and finally Zeus on board, the others had no choice but to follow. So they all hopped on their bikes, well, all but Hera, who towed her bike behind the SUV so her helmet wouldn't mess up her hair, and made the 3-day trip from Seattle to New Orleans. 3 days to travel 2,600 miles. Can you imagine? Hermes could have made the trip in 12 hours, keeping his wheels on the pavement the entire way, but the god of speed had to slow it down and ride with the pack at a tortoise's pace, and everyone knew tortoises were better off as liars. Just ask Apollo. After parking in the driveway, Hermes slipped off his helmet and gazed at the 2-story white mansion with green shutters that would be their home for the next few weeks. His wings fluttered again, always anxious to hit the road, and he stroked the golden feathers, smoothing them back against his helmet. "Calm down, boys. We're staying put for a while." The wings quivered in protest, but the snakes hissed their approval. "Finally," Agnes said. "I was getting motion sick." Hermes slid off the bike and took his suitcase from the side pannier. There was no way in Hades his bike could hold 2 weeks' worth of clothes, much less shoes and accessories, even with the special touring package. Lucky for Hermes and all the gods, Z let them keep their magical powers along with their immortality when they shut down Olympus, so enchanting the side panniers to hold as much as he needed was a no-brainer. He couldn't depend on Hera to carry all his stuff in the SUV. Who knew how long it would take her to get here? Besides, he was the cleverest of all the gods. He helped them, not the other way around. He walked up the porch steps and found the keys and paperwork in a basket by the front door, just where the landlord said they would be. The house sat in the perfect location, a block away from the French Quarter, but far enough from all the action that they could have some privacy when they wanted it. Inside, Hermes' riding boots thudded on the hardwood floor as he made his way through the foyer. A spacious living area sat to the right, with a maroon sofa and love seat and 6 cream-colored chairs positioned around a massive fireplace. Light that baby up, and Hades would feel right at home. To the left stood the dining room, complete with an oblong table with seating for 16. He scoped out the bedrooms, passing up the master because Z would throw a fit if Hermes claimed that one. At the top of the stairs, the first room on the right had pale pink carpet, pink curtains, and hell, everything in there was pink. It was like 50 shades of Pepto-Bismol. Perfect for Hera. The room for Hermes sat at the end of the long hallway. It was decorated in muted earth tones, and the piece de resistance was the small balcony overlooking the back courtyard. As the god of travel, Hermes couldn't stand being cooped up inside for long. This would be his place of escape when he needed a rest from the revelry. The sound of boots thudding on the porch and deep ricochets of laughter resonated through the house as Hermes set his suitcase on the dresser. The rest of the gods had finally arrived. "Took you long enough," he grinned as he descended the staircase and tossed each Olympian a house key. Athena scoffed, brushing her dark hair behind her shoulders. "If you hadn't left us in the dust the moment we hit I-10, we'd have arrived at the same time." "I couldn't help myself. All that open road with the swamp on either side." He sighed wistfully. "What can I say? I have a need for speed." And a need to occasionally put some distance between himself and the other gods and their massive egos. They rode like they owned the road, expecting everyone else to yield to them even when they didn't have the right-of-way. The gods might have ruled on Mount Olympus, but now that they lived on Earth and were supposedly not meddling in mortal affairs, they really needed to let go of their hyped-up self-worth. "I have a need to get out of these riding clothes and slip into something more seductive," Aphrodite purred. "Bedrooms are on the second floor." Hermes gestured to the staircase. "I claimed the master since I got here first." Z's brow slammed down over his eyes. "It's bad enough you get a parade and I don't. You're not getting the master bedroom too." Hermes laughed. "I'm kidding, old man. The big guy gets the big room. I know the rules." Though he'd be the first to break them. Any chance he got. And why not? He'd spent his entire existence accommodating them, helping them out when they got into sticky situations, stealing for them when they wanted something they weren't supposed to have. And how did they repay him? By expecting him to do more. That was how. Since they wanted to treat him like a joke, that was exactly what he'd given them. Becoming a trickster, playing pranks and using his cunning and wit instead of flexing like a self-important god. "Hey, Hermes," Hades shoved a manila envelope toward him. "I need you to take this down to Medusa in the underworld. It's got to be there this afternoon." "See what I mean?" Hermes held up his hands, refusing to take it. "I'm not your errand messenger boy anymore, man. I'm retired, just like the rest of you." Why did they have such a hard time accepting that? "Someone's got to pay Medusa's salary," Hades huffed, narrowing his eyes. "When she agreed to stay in the underworld, it wasn't from the kindness of her stone-cold heart. She's doing it to get paid. I'm already 2 days late sending her check thanks to your vacation plans, and if she doesn't get it soon, she'll quit. Do you really want all those souls finding their way to the earthly realm?" Hermes rolled his eyes and tugged his phone from his pocket. His brooding uncle could be so dramatic. And while Hermes really was done running errands for them, he couldn't resist helping him out. Old habits die hard. A 5-second search provided what he needed, so he texted the website to Hades. Problem solved. "What's this?" Hades squinted at his phone. "What's a NOG?" NOGS. New Orleans Ghostal Service. Hermes scanned the website. "Need something delivered fast. We'll spirit away in no time. Satisfaction guaranteed." Hades pursed his lips, nodding. "That could work. Thanks." At least he offered a little gratitude this time. As the gods got settled into their rooms, Hermes changed into dark brown slacks and a buttercream button-up. Winged cufflinks completed the ensemble, and he strolled onto the front porch, sinking into a wicker chair while he waited for Athena's battle plan. The goddess of war and wisdom had an itinerary scheduled for every damn day of Mardi Gras, and Hermes would humor her and follow it for the time being. Near the house next door, a group of college-age boys, mere children to a 1,000-year-old god, stood on the sidewalk drinking green liquid from plastic yard glasses. Strands of colorful beads encircled their necks, and many were shirtless beneath, reminding him of Dion in his younger years. Dionysius was the first god to jump on board when Hermes suggested this trip, and he could see why. The god of wine and festivity would feel right at home in a place like this. Hermes leaned back in his chair, lacing his fingers behind his head and extending his legs as he soaked in the scene. Enormous oak trees dotted the median, or neutral ground in the local dialect, and 2- and 3-story houses lined the thoroughfare, their facades painted in muted shades of yellow, white, and brown. The college boys whistled as a woman riding a powder blue Vespa rounded the corner. She parked on the curb in front of the guys and slid off the scooter before stepping onto the sidewalk and turning toward Hermes. Her long, dark brown hair was swept back behind her shoulders, and a light coat of shimmery pink eyeshadow accented her brown eyes and olive skin perfectly. She wore brown pants with a purple short-sleeved button-up that had the acronym NOGS embroidered on the breast. Hermes's breath caught and his pulse kicked up as she checked something on her phone. As the messenger god, he held an affinity for those in the courier business, and as a hot-blooded man, he couldn't deny her beauty. Though mortals rarely ever prayed to the Olympians for assistance these days, he'd be happy to bless this delivery woman with a little extra speed and safety on her journey. As she slipped her phone into her back pocket and strode toward the god's rental home, one of the college kids caught her by the wrist. "Where are you going, sweetheart?" he drawled. Hermes leaned forward in his chair as a strange urge to protect this woman he'd never met overcame him. Well, maybe it wasn't completely strange. She was a courier of one of his people, but this urge felt stronger than anything he could recall. A slow smile curved the woman's lips, and she placed her free hand on the boy's shoulder. "I'm going to pick up a delivery. Where are you going?" Her voice was seductive, a purr that could give Aphrodite a run for her money. The guy let out a cocky laugh and released her arm, which she immediately slid behind his back. "How about you forget that delivery and come inside with me?" he asked. She stepped back and tossed a black rectangular object at the guy's chest. "Was that his wallet?" Hermes chuckled. "It sure was." The guy caught it, a baffled expression contorting his features as the woman dangled his watch in front of his face. "How about you learn to treat women with respect?" She dropped the watch into his hand, turned on her heel, and marched toward the god's house. Pausing at the foot of the porch steps, she took a deep breath and blew it out hard, shaking her head as if to chase away thoughts of the confrontation. Hermes rose to his feet, unable to fight a smile. She was a courier and a thief. "Be still, my heart." "Great form," he said as she climbed the steps and stopped in front of him. The wrist flick when you snagged his wallet was a nice touch. Very professional. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, and then cut her gaze to where the college boys stood moments ago. The sidewalk lay empty, the boys having retreated inside to lick their wounds after being outwitted by a woman. "Why did you give it back to him?" he asked. "I didn't need it." She tugged her phone from her pocket again and swiped the screen. "Are you Coal Black?" Coal was Hades' alias among the mortals. Z didn't want them to use their real names. Anonymity was supposedly best, but Hermes couldn't bring himself to go by any other name than his own. What was the point? "I'm with NOGS," she continued, pronouncing it like a word rather than letters. "Here to pick up your delivery." He laughed. "Surely your employer doesn't allow you to call your company Nogs. No respectable courier service would go by such a name." NOGS would be the correct pronunciation. It had to be. She pointed at the letters on her shirt. Nogs. He pursed his lips, wanting ever so badly to press the issue. Nogs was the most ridiculous name he could imagine, but she seemed agitated, almost as if the mere presence of a god didn't faze her. Intriguing. He stepped toward her. "Who taught you to pickpocket?" She cocked her head, giving him a curious look. "No one." "Your skill level speaks otherwise." Her brow arched. "Is Mr. Black inside?" She held his gaze, moving closer and placing her hand on his shoulder. The distraction. Her other hand reached behind him as she brushed past, and, had he been mortal, he might have missed the faint sensation of his wallet being lifted from his pocket. But Hermes wasn't mortal, nowhere close, and he did, in fact, sense her trick. Before her lithe fingers could claim their prize, he spun, clutching her by the wrist with one hand, while simultaneously whisking her necklace free and clutching it in his fist. "Nice try, dearest, but no one steals from the god of thieves." "Oh, you're a god, are you?" "In every sense of the word." He held up her necklace, and her eyes widened briefly before she scowled. "Give that back." She reached for it, but he jerked his hand away. "Tell me who taught you to pickpocket." "None of your business. Hand it over." Hermes grinned. Would she speak to him this way if she knew who he really was? Gods, he hoped so. The woman was fierce. She reached for the necklace again, and he shook his head. "Tit for tat," he teased. Was that a growl emanating from her throat? Aphrodite have mercy, where had this woman been all his life? My father, okay? Now give it back. He gazed at the pendant lying in his palm. A locket. What secrets had she concealed inside? What's your name? Catherine. Well, Catherine of NOGS, your father taught you well. I'm so glad you approve of my upbringing. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. May I have my necklace back now? He tossed it to her, but his infatuation with the intriguing Catherine caused him to miss his mark. The necklace sailed above her head. She jumped to catch it, but as she landed, her ankle twisted, her butt hit the railing, and she tumbled backward off the porch. Whoops. Catherine! He rushed toward her, leaning over the rail in time to see her land on her feet as gracefully as a feline. Are you okay? I'm fine. She clasped the locket around her neck, dropping the pendant down the front of her shirt as she returned up the steps. Are you coal black or not? I've got a job to do. Indeed you do. Coal is inside. Thank you. She rang the bell, and Hermes returned to his seat in the wicker chair, staring out across the road while watching the alluring Catherine from the corner of his eye. Hermes and all the gods had been attracted to plenty of mortals over the eons. He'd always had a soft spot for travelers, traders, couriers, and thieves, but something about Catherine appealed to him on a deeper level. It almost felt as if a thread of his fate had been woven into hers, and only now that he'd met her had it been pulled taut. Crazy, he knew, as if the fates would send him a soulmate after all these millennia. No, this was a case of a man being attracted to a beautiful woman. Nothing more. Hades answered the door, and Catherine's gaze swept over his tattooed arms before meeting his eyes. He was brooding, as usual, but she wasn't fazed by him either, which made her all the more attractive in Hermes' eyes. She didn't cower in the face of raw power, which meant she must be powerful herself. A witch, perhaps? I'm Catherine from Noggs. She glanced at Hermes, a playful smile tugging on her lips as if she said it as a word just to irritate him. Oh, game on, my little herald. She glanced at her phone again. I'm looking for a Mr. Cole Black. That's me. Here's the package. Hades handed her the same envelope he tried to shove off on Hermes earlier. And here are the instructions. Do exactly as it says here, and do not, under any circumstances, attempt to follow the receiver inside. Catherine took the paper and scanned the instructions. Your secret knock is shave and a haircut. Seriously? Hades tapped the rhythm on the door jamb. If you expect her to answer, yes. Wait, she shook her head, staring at the page. I've heard of this place. It's deep in the swamp past the Boker's cottage. Someone actually lives there? Hades' nostrils flared. He wasn't used to mortals questioning him. There will be a boat beneath the tallest cypress tree. Take it to the cabin, knock, and wait for her to answer. The deadline is in half an hour. I can't. It's more important than you can imagine. Get the package there on time, return with a signature confirmation, and I will double your fee in cash. Catherine's eyebrows rose. You got it. Hades closed the door, and Catherine turned toward the steps, chewing her bottom lip as she stared at the envelope. Shit. Hermes himself couldn't deliver this package on time. That sounded like a challenge. He rose to his feet. Want to bet? She shook her head. Excuse me. Hermes, herald of the gods, protector of travelers and god of speed, at your service, he bowed. She scoffed and descended the steps. Right, if you're Hermes, then I'm Pandora. You've already got boldness and cunning. Let me give you hope. He followed her down the stairs and stopped in the driveway, gesturing to his Ducati. I've also got the fastest motorcycle ever created. I can get you there on time. She narrowed her eyes at Hermes and then cut her gaze toward his bike. All right, but if you try anything funny, I won't hesitate to claw your eyes out. Hermes laughed. He would love to see her try. Seriously, that would be hot. You have my word. No funny business. Not yet, anyway.